Let's get to the fighting then, Tank. So in your early life, you were obviously notorious as a barroom brawler, street fighter. And I was wondering, and one of my friends, Vinny Keogh, was wondering, what sort of street fights did you have? And were you in fights where you were outnumbered with weapons and things like that?
Sure, absolutely. No, I've had well over 200 altercations, anywhere from slapping somebody upside the head, the big mouth guys out there that think acting like a tough guy is a big deal, all the way to knockdown, beat down fights that lasted for a good 5 minutes. But at any rate, I grew up in an athletic family, American football over here. My dad was a football coach, career football coach. And my older brother was his little protege, beginner. He's 5 years older than me. I came along as kind of the pet of the family, my brother and sister. And so I kind of looked to my brother as like, wow, he's the guy. But, he was strictly into football. But my father was a football coach. And so he was all athletics. Everything was athletically behind everything. So football came to an end, and I would go to his football practices from my school, watch him play football, and then football was over. And so my dad's like, okay, what sport are you going to go into now? And turned out, he says, you got to go into wrestling, at least give it a try. And my brother wasn't so good at wrestling. He was a great football player, All-American, everything. But when it came to wrestling, he wasn't bad. He was an athlete and all, but he was like my hero, big brother kind of thing. I mean, you see him lose and you're like, what? That's not supposed to happen. But I would tag along from the football field, being the ball boy and everything else. I tagged along with him into the wrestling room. And I found my first love. I was 10 years old. And I was wrestling the 110 pounders, the 120 pounders. I believe I was 96 pounds when I started wrestling over here. It's called AAU wrestling. So I took into that and started wrestling, and that was my passion, my love was American wrestling. So I wasn't just a bar brawler. That was the arena for me to go out and exercise my fun that I got from wrestling in the wrestling room to big mouths that thought they were tough. And in my book that I have out there, it's called Before There Were Rules. I call them posers, wannabes, clowns, just yahoos. Usually they're the narcissistic people that run around all steroided out and making loud noises and doing all that. And I was like, oh, there's a perfect guy for me. Yeah. And sooner or later that would turn into a bar fight, and they would learn that acting tough doesn't make you tough.
Well, you had a combination of the wrestling skills, the punch power, and the physical strength. So you had that whole package.
Yeah, the physical strength is my mother, Scandinavian, Rasmussen, and my father is Anglo-Saxon, English, Irish, that kind of thing. And my mother was Scandinavian and like the Vikings. And I think I got my strength from her. I got a lot of all of that from her, the way I think and what I do. And so, yeah, the strength was a big deal for me. I was real strong and mentally also. So,
well, talking of strength and your street fighting, I've had two questions. Someone said, Rocky Density said, who was your toughest street fight and how did it go down, if you can remember?
Well, you have to realize, like I said, I had over like 200 street fights, and I don't know if you can tell from the thing here, but I'm a really good-looking guy, and so they're kind of like one-night stands. There are so many of them, I really don't remember, but
Right.
I could tell you couple. One time my back was really messed up, and this is just out of the blue that just came to me. I haven't thought of it in decades. And I was, they used to have house parties around where I used to live. And that was kind of the thing back in the early 80s. And this guy was there. He wasn't a bigger guy. And he ended up getting me a bear hug, and he pushed me up against a flower kind of rose bush kind of section of a front yard, and it was about mid calf, and he pushed me over on top of a rose bush, and I was in a bed of thorns basically, and I had to fight myself off of my back while this guy's on top of me punching me. I had to fight myself off out of the bushes, which was not, it was very painful, but I ended up getting back to my feet with the hurt muscles in my back, ended up picking him up and slamming him on the ground and getting my sense of justice back to him. And that was a painful fight, but as far as other fights, boy, man, I'll tell you one that has nothing to do with violence, but we were all partying at there's this place out here where the Colorado River is, and everybody would party out on the side, and this guy comes by in a boat, he had long hair, and he thought he had a bunch of girls, and he was kind of a smaller guy, and he thought because he brought the girls and he had the big fast boat that he was going to call all the shots on the deck of this guy's house we were on. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. He's trying to turn the radio, that kind of stuff. And so he was flexing, posing, trying to be tough guy kind of thing. He's an awfully little guy. And so I gave him a little shove, and he comes back, and he comes swinging like a windmill. And so I didn't want to hurt a little guy, but he started it. And so I put my hands out to stop him, and I finally had enough, and I was going to take care of business, and I was going to kind of hip toss him over onto some rocks. Well, I go for the hip toss, and the hair comes off and everything else. He stays there. It turns out he had a wig on sewn to his head. And all the girls that he brought to the thing were in the house by this time. And so he had to grab his wig. I scalped him. And he had to go into the house and get his 5 girls that he brought to the party. And he temper tantrumed, whatever, stormed out like Baby Huey with his wig in his hand, jumped on his boat and took off. It was quite fun. His hair saved his life.